You can't hear me? Okay. So I'm Anita Collins. I think I know most of you in the room. That's got a lot of our usual suspects came out today, which is great. Who here has not been to a user group meeting before? Anybody? First time out here? Well, yay! Okay. Awesome. Thanks for coming out. Okay, so today, our focus for today is year end. So I know a lot of you guys are starting to think about getting ready for year end. I know that a lot of the folks in the front row here are thinking about it pretty hard right now. And so that's our deep dive topic for today. So just real quick, we try to touch base on this at every user group meeting just to make sure that everybody is clear on these key points. So what are these user group meetings for? I'm sure a lot of you could answer these questions now, but they're a deep dive into a hot topic. So if you have thoughts on what your topics you'd like to see covered, we have some suggestion cards in the back, or you can just send me an email. So Anita_Collins@unc.edu. If you have an idea for a topic, we would love to hear it. It's also a chance to ask questions, so we have some experts in the room to help. If there's anything we can't answer, we'll take it back and try to get an answer for you. These meetings are open to anyone who uses Connect Carolina. So if you're interested in the topic, whether it's finance or HR or reporting, anything, please come on out. And please encourage your coworkers to come. So it helps us to gauge interest in topics and things. The more people we have on site, it helps us. But you can also join on the web. So has anybody attended through the web? So far, a couple of people. Okay. So our first one we had challenges with the sound, so it didn't work out. But they are recorded, and so far since then we've had good success with broadcasting over the web. If you miss one, it is recorded and it's put out on the CC Info website. So lots of ways to get this information. Okay, I'll help. Okay, how many of you have put in a help ticket? Wow, there are a few who have not. Okay, just to make sure that you guys are clear, it's the best way to ensure that your issue doesn't get lost. So it's very tempting to, you get a friendly name, a friendly face, and get a name attached to it and an email address, and you want to email that person. But everybody on the project team is getting inundated with a lot of different email. A help ticket is your best bet because it gets a number and it gets a date and time associated with it. So the clock starts ticking, so they track how old the tickets are. It's just your best bet. Just for speeding things up, if you can attach a screenshot, be very specific about the problem that you're having, it really helps out. It helps them solve your issue quickly and get it to the right team who can work on the issue. So again, two ways to do it. You can call. You can use the help website. There's like chat and other options, but I think these are the two most common. So feel free to call if you have just a question about how to do something. If you're having an issue, please do take advantage of the help desk. Okay, so year end. So as we know, year end is approaching. It's our first one in Connect Carolina. So firsts are always exciting and hard, right? So just like in years past, Dennis Press is going to issue a memo that says here are all the dates that you need to be aware of for year end and with instructions. We're expecting that in early May. They're actively working on it now. But there are some things that you can start doing now and start thinking about and keeping an eye on and working on getting ready to make a year-end go smoothly. So today we don't have a handout for today. We put what we're talking about today on a web page. So again, this is on CC Info. If you click on the Finance tab, and then there's a drop down underneath it that's 2015 fiscal year end. So it's a page that we built to collect the information that we're talking about today. We're going to add as memos come out, you'll see links for those memos. We'll post information about training classes out there. So trying to, I know everybody's dealing with some information overload. So we're trying to put in one place, okay, here's everything to do with year end. So that just went live, I think, yesterday, and we'll be building it out more as we go. But what we're talking about today is out there. Okay, so right now we're focusing on 5 steps to be aware of or to do to get ready for year end. There will be more, but this will get us started. So the first one is to clean up your stuck transactions. Now who's been on to the class that tells you how to deal with stuck transactions? Anybody? Oh, great. Okay, 2 people have. Okay. The next one is to get familiar with recent changes that help you prepare for year end. Martha's going to talk about that, but there's some changes that are specifically were made to help you with year end challenges that you're facing. So, okay. The next is to understand your balances, if that's your role. And Susan McDonough is here from the team. Has anybody been to a class by Susan McDonough, taught by Susan? Okay, great. So she's going to talk about some tools that are available to understand what your balances are. Then we're going to talk about how to plan for next year's budget. So Henry Price is here to talk about that. Then we're going to just very briefly touch on new departments because this is that time of year to think about new departments. And then just want to leave a placeholder because this isn't everything. This is just what we know so far and things that you can go ahead and get started on. Okay, so I'm going to take the first topic. Okay, cleaning up stuck transactions. Okay, so one good thing is that as you've been getting ready for month-end close, you, without maybe thinking about it, you've also been getting ready for year-end close. So a lot of the things that you do to get ready for month-end close will help you with year-end as well. So particularly you've been managing some of your budget journals and your campus journals or GL journals. Okay, so thinking about month-end, what happens with transactions at month-end is for budget journals or transfers. So for state and F&A funds, those journals have been getting deleted. So I know the budget office has been working with you guys to get those cleaned up, but they have not been being deleted for trust or other funds. So for campus journals, the accounting services has either been deleting them or posting them. So you're in pretty good shape in those areas, right? For any kind of voucher, though, for campus vouchers, they've been being rolled forward. So I don't know if you guys came to the meeting where we talked about the whole journal roll forward and the fact that if a campus voucher isn't posted in the month, then the counting date has changed and it's just moved forward to the next month. So that's what happens at month end. For requisitions and purchase orders, so they're posted in the month that they're processed in, and it could be in the future. So, and deposits and billing entries are posted in the current month. So that'd be helpful to kind of just make sure everybody's clear on what's happening month to month, and then we can talk about what's different for year end. Okay, so we can't leave any transactions, well, there are a few exceptions, but we can't leave transactions open for year end. So a big change then for year end is that we can't roll vouchers forward. So there's a lot of open vouchers out there. Is Becky here? Becky, do you know what the number is? Shandy?
Last time when we did it was over, it was close to 6,000.
6,000, wow, okay.
And
so
January it was 8,000.
8,000, okay, so it's gone down, that's good, I guess. So that's a lot of vouchers that are being rolled over month to month, and they cannot be rolled over into the new fiscal year. So that's something that we need to be aware of. They'll have to be posted or they'll have to be deleted. So all requisitions have to either be closed or fully canceled. If they're not, they're subject to being canceled as well. Purchase orders with an open balance, they can roll forward to the next year if all the related documents are in the correct status. So in other words, if they're not on hold, if they have been dispatched, there's some other criteria as well. So they can roll forward. Campus journals will continue to be deleted if they're not processed. So basically, if approvals are complete, they'll make it through the rest of the way, just like at month end. For budget journals and transfers, so accounting services and the budget office are still working out the year-end process. So since for state and F&A, they are being deleted on month to month, so that's going to happen at year-end, but the others are still being talked about. Okay, so some transactions you may be aware of aren't all the way through, and some are just stuck, and you may or may not be aware of those. For example, as you know, when you submit a transaction, so I'm talking about all the different kinds of transactions work a little bit differently, but the system checks it for what are called combo edit rules. So do all the chart fields work together? Are they valid? Is the combination of chart field values valid? Are the dates on the transactions valid? If it applies to the transaction, do the PO, the voucher, and the receipt match? So there's different ways that it can error out, and it makes the transaction get stuck. and you may not realize that it is actually stuck. It can also have budget errors, so it's not going to move forward if there are budget errors on it. And then also it could be stuck just unposted for any reason, so maybe it just hasn't made it all the way through the approval process. Maybe it's sitting in somebody's work list waiting and they haven't approved it yet. So those are some different ways that transactions can get stuck. So the good news is that you have access, so everybody who has a finance role of some kind has access to a set of queries that helps you identify those transactions. So you could go out back to your desk today and look for those queries. There's some resources on the CC Info website to help you run those. But they help you, there's just a series of queries that help you identify particular transactions that are stuck for different reasons. Okay, so the good thing is these are not just for year end, these are useful for month end as well. So if you get in the habit of doing those, running those queries every few days, then when month end won't be as challenging either, and it'll certainly put you in good shape for year end. Okay, so all transactions by year end, they need to have departmental approval completed, and for each transaction that's open, you're going to need to figure out why the transaction stuck, and then you're either going to need to delete it, maybe you don't need it anymore, or you're going to need to resolve the issue and get it through departmental approval by the date that accounting services will put out in that memo. Okay, so I just get going too fast. Okay. Okay. Well, the good news is, so this is just to get you guys to go to the class. So have you had a chance to go to the? Okay. So that's right. That's right. So I'm happy to cover it again with you after the meeting if you want to. That's no problem. But what we'd love for you to go is to go to the class. If you are having trouble signing up, because it did fill up, we put about 25 classes out there, but they filled up. We've had to release it like 3 times another round of classes. So just shoot me an email. I'll be happy to go out and check. We're definitely adding more classes even now. So what this class does is it teaches you how to run these queries, but it's not just focused on running the queries. It's focused on what do I do with the results that I get. So how do I clean up all these different kinds of transactions that are stuck? So you can find the classes on the CC Info website on the training schedule. And, let me know. We've offered it about 25 times so far, but it's a lot of people who can, benefit from this class, so we're happy to add more. Just let me know. Okay. Also, there's several resources. Sure. So, they are definitely filling up. So last time I checked, we had about 2 dates that were still open, that had open, and our schedule is actually trying to book. She has to book the locations as well. So she'll put another round of at least 5 classes out at that time. But just email me directly. I can get you in. If you're having trouble getting in, I can put you in before we even publish it. So it's just Anita _Collins, and then just at unc.edu. Yeah, so I'd be happy to get you in class. Anybody else who's having trouble, just let me know, because that class has filled up quite quickly. So another resource that's available for you guys out on CC Info is a checklist, and I won't run through it really quickly. Just want to make sure that you guys are aware that it's out there. So it's a checklist to clean up requisitions and vouchers for month-end and year-end close. So it goes into quite a lot of detail about what to look for and how to clean things up. Okay. So before I turn it over to Martha, do you guys have any questions that I can answer? Sorry, we're recording it, so do you want to bring her the mic? Okay, just ask and I'll repeat the question.
So when are they releasing those key things when things have to be submitted by to make sure that they get through? Because I know right now a lot of my stuff through certain departments is taking extra long time to get through.
So the question was, when is the memo coming out? excuse for the key dates, and early May is what I was told just yesterday, actually. Sorry, guys. So any other questions that you have? Okay. So I will turn it over to Martha, and I'll be back to wrap up at the end.
Good morning. There are not very many of you, but you can make a bigger sound than that. Good morning. Okay. I'm here to talk to you about some of the changes that they have made recently that will help you to help us to close the year. Anita was speaking to it, but all requisitions have to be closed or fully canceled. If they are not, the central office is going to have to cancel them. And to cancel them, we need to know whether you need those goods and services. So we want you to go out there and look at them and cancel them if they're not needed. One of the things that has happened since Go Live is that people start a document and ran into an issue. Maybe your chart fill didn't go or something happened. Well, instead of going back and fixing that document, you went back and you figured out what the issue was and created a whole new document. And there's some of those what we call orphan documents out there that just need to be cleaned up. Purchase orders with an open balance can be rolled to the next year. Those are commitments of the university, but all of the statuses have to be correct. We have to dispatch the purchase order to the vendor. It can't be on hold. The encumbrances have to be greater than 0, items like that. You can now receive by purchase order ID. Remember in the old system how you would go into the web system and you put in your PO number and pull it up to do your receiving? Well, in Connect Carolina, you can now go to the purchase orders and put in your purchase order number and do the receiving, just like you used to be able to do. It allows you to receive against all POs, even those that were converted into FRS. You know, the old way of receiving, which you can still do, it didn't go away, doesn't allow you to actually receive against it unless you actually created that requisition. In this way, you can receive against it regardless of who created the requisition. And the resource on the Connect Carolina website, here's the breadcrumbs, and there's they've made this nice little graphic that walks you through every single step, step by step. It's also the type document that you can print, keep by your desk. Very descriptive. Vouchers. Vouchers are problematic. Vouchers are problematic because they have to be closed in order to close the year, closed or posted. So as Shanrika was saying, each month they roll those vouchers from one month to the next by changing the accounting date. We can't do that to close the year. So around the middle of June, we will stop taking vouchers, and we will be busily processing all those vouchers in the pipeline. But that voucher has to be in our queue for us to get to it. So the queries that they have developed will help you identify where they might be stuck. And there are vouchers out there, and we have seen some of them in which you created it. Well, it got stuck for a budget or some sort of, out of bounds or some sort of error, okay? Well, when you resolve that, you didn't go mess with that voucher again. You just created a new voucher. So we're aware that they're out there. Those have to be deleted. You're the one that will know whether that voucher is needed or not. Or if that voucher is stuck, that represents a payment we need to make. and we need for you to figure out how to unstick it so we can get it and process it for the end of the year. That'll be a lot of work to do in 2 short weeks for us, but we're confident that if people help clean up all of these orphan things out there, that we will be able to do that. The information, you can now actually delete your own voucher out there. So if the voucher is something that's still in your department or is one of those ones you created that you don't need, this helpful little sheet will help you to actually go out there and delete the voucher. It's simply a matter of clicking the X. It's really an easy process, but you're the one who would know whether you really need it or you don't need it. But we need you to go out there and start looking at those. Now, are there any questions for me? Yes.
I'm concerned about the 30-day payment cycle. It's causing me to pay late fees every single month, even though I ask for and put it on the documentation, ask that a certain voucher gets paid before the date, but it doesn't happen. So I get charged every month. I'm getting used to that. What's going to happen with cutoff? Basically, you're saying that cutoff is really a firm cutoff, that we should not do any more vouchers after that cutoff date. Is that not correct?
I suspect after that cutoff date, you won't have the ability to do any more vouchers.
So you really actually just cut them before we had a cutoff date, and we knew that that was a date that was sort of a guarantee date that you would work really hard to pay, but that we could continue processing trip requests, and if you got to them, sometimes they would get paid. And that was fine, so we could keep the kettle boiling, moving right along, and oftentimes you all were very efficient and would get things paid. But now it's sounding to me like the cutoff is really going to be a hard cutoff, because we don't want vouchers out there that we then have to go in and delete and go and do all over again.
The reality is, in the old world, the fact that those documents were out there didn't make any difference. In PeopleSoft, it does. It's a different system and it works differently. Those vouchers either have to be posted or they have to be deleted. I mean, we only have 2 choices. So we have to have a hard cutoff, because if you can imagine, if there are 6,000 vouchers out there, that's a lot of processing in 2 weeks. Everything out there has to be touched. Just like every purchasing agent has to touch every single PO to make the decision of whether it needs to be rolled or whether it should be closed or canceled or whatever prior to the end of June. In the old world, we didn't touch those things. The mainframe just moved them forward. It works differently. We have to do this. So, yes, it is a hard cutoff date.
And what's going to happen with things that have gone in before that date, but that were on this 30-day system-created cycle? Are you going to turn that off?
The 30 days is... The 30 days is by vendor. Okay, by vendor. A voucher can be posted. The 30 days is vendor specific. So that's something we have to work through. But my expectation is that we will work all this out. That should not be your concern. Okay. Is there a specific vendor that you continually have problems with?
The vendor on my invoice is a 3-week thing, but they get paid in a 4-week cycle. So I get charged every month for 12
Who is the vendor? Well, email me the vendor. It may be that we can adjust the payment cycle for that one vendor. Email me. Yes, Gordon.
I understand Leo's Deli in Harborough has cut off the whole university until they can call up to like $6,000.
Do you know who in the university owes them? Because those things aren't sitting in disbursements.
I'm sure they're all over the place.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. If you owe them, please send me your vouchers. Yes.
I think one thing that we kind of use as our workaround when it comes to the 30-day rule is 30 days from whatever you put in as the invoice date. So if you put the invoice date in a couple of days or a week prior to what your actual entry date is, it normally will auto-process a 30 days payout from that date that you put in. So if you know that the date on the invoice is normally the date that they create, which is normally about 2 weeks before you actually receive it. So why would you put that in? And as long as the approval processes go appropriately, which they normally do, it'll process a payout within the 30 days from the original invoice date. So that might be a workaround for you to try to get it out a little quicker. Again, depending on mail, you know, there's a little bit of that.
I will just mention that the state auditors and the federal auditors would not be happy.
Well, technically, the invoice date that's being requested is the date on the invoice.
That is the date you should have put in there, it's the invoice date.
And some people are putting in the date that they actually are sitting there putting it in.
Oh, they should not do that. It should be the date that is on that invoice. And if you look at our invoices, most departments don't put those invoices in until they're 2 or 3 weeks old to start with. All you have to do is pull the statistics. So you should be getting them paid fairly quickly.
I always use the invoice date because I know the people in personal services will kick them back because they've done so, and rightfully so, if they don't have the matching invoice date and invoice number. They're very particular about that. Good for them. My problem is I have an invoice date and what have you, and then a 3-week window to pay it, and then there's a mailing problem, and if they're not going out soon enough for it's CenturyLink, that's who it is, CenturyLink, they're on a 3-week payment cycle.
Well, you just need to send us the documentation from CenturyLink that their cycle is 3 weeks, and those payment terms can be adjusted to meet their cycle.
It's just so on their invoice, and I put a note on my every time.
You have to send this to the vendor coordinator. The processor has nothing to do with payment terms.
So sorry, guys, but we need to move on to the next topics. But we'll be here for a few minutes after the meeting. So if anyone has questions, just come on down, and we'll answer questions after the meeting. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
While I get all situated here, how's everyone? All right. So I'm going to talk quickly so we stay on schedule. I'm going to talk about, the next topic is called budget balances. So basically I'm going to talk about this increased access, can you guys hear me? That's been given to a select group of people on campus and some additional tools that you'll have to, hear me okay? I'm not on. My mic fell. I was going to be a rock and roll singer, but I couldn't figure out these kinds of things, so I decided to be a trainer. I think it's working out so far. So I'm talking about, a little bit of background. For a long time, as y'all know, kind of had tight control over information, system-wide. But as we are approaching year-end and the, need to look at your balances quickly and see financial information, decision was made to open up the access a little bit to a select group of people on campus and provide a couple of additional tools. So I think the MOUs plus people that MOUs designate will have this increased access, and we anticipate maybe about 200 people or so. And the first tool that's been made available is a set of queries. So there's a different set of queries that, from what Anita talked about, that are, the intention is to be able to see your different financial balances, namely your budget balances, your fund balances, and your cash balances. And so that'll be the starting point, and then down the road we will have other reporting tools like Envision and things like that.
So that's what I'm talking about. Oh, I guess I could have put the slide up. Here we go. This thing got me all discombobulated. So that's what I just said. One sort of administrative thing about this is if you are, the terms of use have become even more important. So if you are one of these 200 people or so, you will be asked to click that button again on the terms of use agreement because it is really, really important that you only use this information for its intended purpose because you do have access to see financial balances and things like that. So if you haven't been asked already to, again, click that button on the terms of use, you will be, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so let me just talk about this class. We have put together a class and some of you have already been one of my victims. So we have a class on learning about these queries and what the numbers mean that you are seeing in these queries. So just some admin points about it. We do go into production. Well, actually, these queries are in what we call the RPT environment, but we go into that environment. So if you're taking this class, you will see your own data so that you can see what your actual balances are and compare them to what you are seeing in the other reporting tools that we have. The class is only open to those people that will have access. So if you're sitting here wondering if you should take this class, your first thing to find out from your MOU lead is whether you're one of the people that will have access to these queries. Okay, the invitations have gone out, so I think we've covered everybody. But if you're still wondering if you are one of these people and need to go to the class, then just ask. So a little bit about the class and what we cover. We go into a bit of detail about what the different financial numbers mean now that we're in Connect Carolina, which is an accrual-based accounting system and not a cash-based accounting system. So making sure what's the difference between a budget balance and a fund balance and a cash balance because we have the different reporting tools and the different queries that show those different things. So we really focus in on not just how to run the query and make sure you're finding the number that's for your department, but that you know what that number means, okay? And where there's a difference, should you be worried about the difference, or is it just a normal difference based on how things are processed in the system, okay? I know we hear the question a lot, like how do I know how much money do I have in this fund? That is one thing that we cover in that class. So with that, any questions? No. So here's where I run off the stage. Is there a question? Yes. When can everybody get this? That answer to that is above my pay grade. Right now, it's just the 200 or so. As we go forward, that might change, but right now it's definitely limited to that. Yep. And also, just to say once again, these queries are in what's called the RPT, the reporting environment, not in the production environment, so the data is a day behind the production environment. Okay? Different from the other set of queries, which are open to, which are in the production environment, which are open to all campus. Okay? All right. With that, I will turn it over to Henry, who's going to talk about budgets.
I got one. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
For those who don't know me, I'm Henry Price, working in the budget office. It's been a while since I've been out, since Connect Carolina started, but I'm back out in the forefront. They asked if I could discuss a piece of our plan for next year's budgets. And, if you all know, there's been some emails that's gone out to talk about a few budget changes to the budget definitions. And what those are is basically how the budget's managed and how it's structured. So, based on those memos, we're going to change for 2016 the F&A and the trust budgets. Just a few summary of the changes what I'm going to go over. So the foundations, they'll be able to budget on program cost code 1, 2, and 3. And one of the hot items is F&A. It did not have a account on it. It was just the fund source and department. But we're adding an account to that. That should help with some reporting. So it's going to be by personnel, lumping all that together, and all non-personnel, lumping those together. So for trust funds, a top piece of this is your source ranges for Trust 1. Anything outside of that, if it's not athletics, student affairs, or the S&P, UNCFP, it's in Trust 2. So for 2016, for Trust 1 and 2, basically they'll be adding an account also. Same concept as the F&A. There'll be a personnel line and non-personnel. And instead of budgeting on the revenue account, you'll have Trust 1 and Trust 2 revenues will be a single account. All right, so, but there will be no changes to athletics, student affairs, and those UNC F&P. Trust funds continue. Cost code 3 will be removed from Trust 2, so the budgeting will look like fund source account department. And then program will continue to be a optional chart field on Trust 2. Okay. So associated revenue, was a hot topic coming out when we started this, but apparently there's been some issues with it, so it will no longer be used in the system. Instead, there'll be a nightly increase to your available balance using that automatic budget create. And that's similar to how FRS used to do, where they look at your, well, in this case, they look at your recognized revenue and create a budget based on that to increase your spending authority in your budget. And I think this might be my last slide, but as of May 1 for state funds, we're going to lift some of the budget control so that we can get things processed a little quicker. And the communication went out last week. But, we're going to leave it up to, the MOU leads to do the monitoring on that, and we'll also do some monitoring to kind of help you guys out on that. So I guess I'll take questions. Yeah. Nice. All right. Oh, sorry about that. So I'll pass it on to, I'm sorry, was it next slide?
You're going to do that one.
No, I didn't. Okay. There's one more? Okay, it didn't have plans. It says how to PO roll its budget. Okay. So let's read through this together then. It didn't have the, look at the top, it didn't have plan for next year. So. All right, so we'll continue. So incomes for opening POs, roll forward to the next fiscal year. Oh yeah, okay, this is kind of mine. So the state funds, we do have a recurring budget out there. So when we copy the budgets over to 2016, well, they're actually out there. When we open up 2016, you have your budgets there. There'll be no expenses. So those POs should have no effect. Well, they'll have an effect on your balance, but it should just roll over into the 2016 with no problems. And then I guess this is part of if the department doesn't complete the closeout of the PO, plan to spend those funds anyway, not assume that the budget will be available for next year. So, okay. All right. So, one more. All right. All right. So, same concept. The budget department has $1,000. Your PO is for $20,000. The $20,000 incumbents will roll over to 2016. Of course, it will come out of your next year's budget. So your department finds a different way to spend the $20,000 left in 2015. Basically, to release that encumbrance in this current year, you can do some things to move that around to cover other charges or things like that. And if the final expenditure is $980, there's no guarantee that the department will be allowed to carry forward the full $20,000 that's unspent. In other words, because we have to send these budgets to the state for our carry forward request. And if they do grant it, then you have that $20,000 as a temporary budget line for next year. Yeah. All right. So now I'll go back here. Is there any questions on what I've covered? I'll pass it on to Anita.
I do have a question.
Yes.
there's a great benefit in that loss?
That may be the case. And my thought on it, it probably shouldn't because of the way some of the reports I'm thinking about are designed. They won't have fringes in those, but there's probably still some more to work out on what's actually going to be covered under that budget. All right, thank you.
Okay, so can we just get a hand for Henry because because it's what we're kind of used to on the project side to getting short notice with our presentations sometimes, but I don't think that's kind of been a first to find out while you're presenting that you're supposed to present someone. So that was very good sport there for Henry. So I just have a very quick one. So just again, just like always, at the end of the fiscal year, any changes that need to be made to departments are being made at this time. And so I think the deadline's actually already been passed to submit those changes. So if changes are needed, your MOU lead will be working with the provost's office to get those changes made. So just a heads up, nothing needs to be done around that. Just know that that is going on just like usual. Okay, so just some key takeaways from today's meeting. So please try to get in the habit of cleaning up your stuck transactions. If you're not familiar with how to do it, please sign up for our class. Again, if you're having trouble signing up, I'd be happy to help you get in that class because we think it's a valuable class for getting ready for year end. Also sign up for so that's the class. So it's called Preparing for Year-End Close and Reviewing Open Transactions. So basically it's the one running queries. It's the one that everyone has access to. If you have a finance role, you have access to those queries. Okay, if you are one of those enhanced reporting users, the ones that have a bit more access, please sign up for the other class, the Reporting in an Accrual-Based Accounting Systems class. If you're confused about these, just send me an email. I'm happy to explain the difference between the classes. So this is for the smaller group that has access to a set of queries and reports that not everyone has access to. So we do think it's a valuable class because I think running the queries is not the hard part. It's understanding what you get when you do run those queries. It's understanding that information. Okay, and just be familiar with the budget changes. So there have been a couple of memos around that. Henry touched on the general changes, but that's an important thing to do before year end, before the start of the new year, I should say. Okay, so I do think we actually have about 15 minutes, and so let's open it back up for questions. And I think Ian's going to help as well, or Deborah? Okay, so we do have some people connected through the webinar, so we'll try to repeat your questions. But who has a question for any of the folks sitting up here who might be able to help you?
I have questions from the webinar if you want.
Okay.
So a question was, can you detail what those related documents being in the correct status means for purchase orders with an open balance?
So Martha, can I?
They're not on hold. The encumbrance is not zero, and they're open. Yes, they do have to be dispatched. We would have had to send them to the vendor. They have to be sitting out there, open. You have an encumbrance. That means that you haven't liquidated all the lines. If all the lines are liquidated, then nothing rolls. Remember when we converted the FRS? There was this issue that people thought if they had completed POs that we were going to recreate those in the new system, and we didn't. And I had people say, well, I was going to do a change order. Well, it was what it was. So if there's nothing on the PO, it won't roll. And it can't be on hold for any reason. And that would affect things like the furniture where we have to have inspections for the installation and things like that. We'll have to take those off hold to actually roll them and then put them back on hold because they have to have an inspection by the state before they can pay.
We only have trust funds in our unit, and most have associated revenue. Will associated revenue issues be at least temporarily resolved so that we can cross the FY line?
We are working through that.
Good. Regarding trust fund, year-end, we are working through the process, and we are planning to meet with the MOUs, and these will be discussed in detail at that meeting, and there will be a follow-up communication after that meeting. Thank you.
Will we be able to enter actions on July 1st, or will the system be closed for a period of time?
Becky?
Okay. Okay, so Becky says the system will be available, and she's throwing it to you.
I need clarification on what participants mean by action items. I'm not sure what exactly they mean. The new fiscal year will be available as of first of the date, but as it used to be in Legacy World, the balances, you may not see all the balances because we will still be working on closing the year-end transactions and processes. So at this point, it's too early to tell on 1st of July what will be available, but the period will be open for campus to carry on the business. The campus will not be shut down just because we haven't closed the year end. It's going to be similar to what it used to be in the Legacy World.
Will purchasing be reviewing open POs to determine which ones roll over? And if so, will they be contacting the departments?
Unfortunately, the answer to that is yes and yes.
Okay, I have transactions posted on the wrong account code category. How do I fix these past and current transactions? Accounting says they can't do correcting JEs on account code issues. P-card says they can't do anything. I haven't reconciled these charges because I don't want to reconcile them if they're not on the right account code.
Well, the P-card charges have to be reconciled in the P-card system. But you can send your request to procurement internal, just the email address, and give all the information for the voucher, what was originally charged and what your new desired account code is, and with a justification. The justification cannot be because of budget. The justification has to be that there's something wrong in terms of its classification, and procurement will correct those for you.
So we have a follow-up on the July 1st question. I had in mind budget transfers and EPARs on my July 1st question.
Yes, budget transactions can happen when we open up the fiscal year. EPAR should be the same concept.
Does anyone in the room have?
Yeah, we want to get the room questions too.
Yeah. I'll just repeat your question. I don't know if I can repeat the whole question, but I know it relates to having access to the CHMed Foundation. Is that correct? That you don't have access to query that foundation, and how are you going to get the information basically if you can't run the query? Okay, so she needs to see if the vouchers are open, but she doesn't have access to see it. So I don't know, Becky, is that you or? So Becky says they're going to take a look at how that query is written and follow up. So, okay. Who else has a question? Anyone else in the room? Deborah?
I have one more. Will you be fixing the ePro account code problems?
I believe I need a little more clarification.
Okay, we'll have to wait and see if we get it. We do have another question. If the P-card period is passed and the transactions are already posted on the wrong account code, do we email internal procurement about that as well?
You can. The P-card is only allowed certain account codes, and so if they are wrong, you need to, if your account code is wrong, you need to email procurement internal, and we'll take a look at that. You cannot charge a P-card charge to an account code that is not authorized for the P-card. So emailing, we'll have to take a look at that.
Any questions in the room? Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming out today. And again, we'll be here for a few minutes. So if anybody wants to come down and ask questions, please do. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you at the next meeting.